Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Vallecitos Water District for March 4th. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and would you please lead this, Mr. Schwab?
Yes, I'd be honored. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and we'll do roll call.
It's not on my screen yet.
It's not on the screen.
Oh my goodness. Hate when that happens.
You know it's terrible. I think the secretary was missing.
Here we go.
And we're all here. Thank you. We need a motion to adopt the agenda for the regular meeting of March 4th.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There's no opposed, so it passes unanimously. The next is public comment. I'm sorry, they don't tell me what they're...
Is this for the item or are you wanting to cover?
2.1?
Yes.
Okay. Looks like we have no one for public comments today, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Been moved and approved to accept the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we'll move to action item 2.1. Mr. Klumpel?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So this item came over after we had a public comment at the last board meeting for the Nordor 15-lot subdivision. I'm going to hand this item over to talk about. There will be a brief presentation to Engineer Scholl.
Thank you much, Chair. Mr. Gumpel, good afternoon. President Evans, members of the board. So I have a short presentation for you. This is based on last meeting here. As you may recall here, we have Mr. Reza Samandari and Ms. Sahar Naimi that are coming back before the board today to discuss the Nordal 15-lot subdivision. They also have their engineer with them, Mr. Lee Whittington. And so I'll have a short presentation that kind of describes the project, gives you some of the background behind it and some of the decisions, and then talk about the new ownership and what we're asking. So very quickly here, the project location, this is off of Nordal Road. It's in between, almost halfway between Rock Springs Road and El Norte Parkway. It's in an area that we call our Bennett area, which is an area that has a lot of Vista Irrigation District served properties in it. And our sewer service area also is a little patchy in this area too. And it just so happens that this project, while it's within Vallecitos' sphere of influence, it's currently outside both of its water and sewer service areas. The property does currently have one single family residence on it. It currently receives service there from the Vista Irrigation District. I believe the property is also served by septic at this point. So really we got started with this property and the development back in 2017. Back then it was owned by two family trusts here, the Waring Family Trust and the Atelier Family Trust. They applied for annexation into Vallecitos' water and sewer service areas, and this board did approve conditions for that annexation back on July 19th of 2017. Also, the Vista Irrigation District determined that it was going to provide water service at that time. And on December 1st of 2017, Vallecitos completed a sewer study. That study actually identified about 7,000 feet of what we're going to call undersized pipe from the development all the way down to the district's land outfall on the other side of town Now, half of that undersized pipe was identified in our master plan as requiring upsize. So the developer's potential wastewater capital facility fees would pay for their portion of that. And then the other half of this undersized pipe here, the vast majority of it there is what we consider a little over design criteria, which means it's not necessarily in dire condition. It's just a little over half full, which is about the design criteria that we like to have. So this is the point where we start to discuss the conditions there with the developers and work with the developers here with their project, and we ended up negotiating a single 137-foot section that they would upsize as their contribution here for this project, because this 137-foot section was more impacted. It had a shallower slope there, and the flow on it was a lot greater than the vast majority of the rest of this undersized pipeline. The developer was acceptable to this here, and they started the project there, and they started design, and by August of the following year, they started a subdivision plan check with us. About April of the following year, though, I guess the proverbial wheels there started to come off here with this development. We got a response from the previous owner, Jim Waring. He sent an email to staff here just starting to question the viability of this project here. And so work basically stopped at this point on both the plan check and on the annexation conditions. We typically give 6 months for a project. If it sits without any activity at that point, we'll send them a 30-day letter. After receiving no further developments, staff went ahead and closed this project out due to inactivity in December of 2019. And so a couple points here that I wanted to point out. At this point, when the project was closed out, the plan check with the previous owner was left incomplete. We had no approved construction agreement. We didn't even get to that point. Annexation conditions were not met there. So effectively, we had no written commitments or agreements between the district and the developer to really secure this as a project. So it's actually about this time then that Mr. Samandari and Ms. Naimi approached us about bringing this project back to life there. They were under the assumption here that the previous development conditions still applied. And as you see a couple months later here, I went ahead and informed both Mr. Samandari and Ms. Naimi that we didn't have a project with them. The previous project that we had with the previous owner was closed out, and that basically a new water and sewer study would be required. And some of the supporting reasons why is because in this 2-year time frame between when we discussed conditions with Mr. Waring back in early 2018, and at this point in time, a few things have happened. We've had discussions with the Vista Irrigation District recently about water service to these Bennett area developments. And basically, the Vista Irrigation District staff and ourselves agreed that for some of these development projects, where it made sense here, we talked about them taking the projects, bringing the projects to Vallecitos to serve instead of Vista Irrigation District, so we could start that process of annexing everyone to Vallecitos. So that was one thing. Last year we adopted a brand new master plan. The master plan has updated and greater future wastewater projections than the previous master plan. And with that master plan, we also have a new sewer model with those projections as well. So that kind of brings us to where we are today. Mr. Samandari and Ms. Naimi have requested that the district honor the project requirements set with the previous owners. So just to briefly discuss the staff's position here, I got 2 slides. So the first one is on water. This is the easier one. From the board memo that you got in your packet, we've actually got some updates on this. Staff has met with Vista Irrigation staff back last Friday. We've got together and we determined that since VID is already serving the existing residents, they've already got infrastructure in that area, and that Vallecitos does not. Vallecitos would have to do about a 1,000-foot line extension to serve this property. We were in agreement here that that Vista Irrigation District would be in a better position to serve this project here. So basically, this should please the new project owners here that, yeah, we're in agreement with them here on who would serve it as far as water. On the sewer side, as I mentioned before, the previous project with the previous project owner here, that was closed out without any type of written agreement or anything to secure that project. And due to the fact that we have a new master plan, we have a new supporting sewer model with updated wastewater projections, staff's not really in a position to properly set conditions on this project without evaluation through a new sewer study here. So in conclusion, what staff is requesting is that Mr. Samandari and Ms. Naimi authorize staff to work on an updated sewer study so that we can assist in developing or assist in setting developing conditions and they can get their project underway. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Mr. Elitharp, Director Elitharp.
Yeah, Rob, when did the new property owners acquire the property?
I'm not sure if the new, I don't know the exact date of the acquisition. If
Can
the
somebody tell us?
acquisition, was that December of last year or January of 2020?
When did you acquire this property?
3 weeks ago?
3 weeks ago.
We acquired on February 1st.
February 1st.
Yes.
Mr. Elitharp, any more questions?
Did the new property owners come in and talk to anybody at the district before they acquired the property?
They did. So the property owners actually started discussions with staff about mid-December of last year in regards to this, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Martin.
What staff is requesting, the new, what does that cost?
So for a sewer study, it's about $3,000. It's a deposit, it's not a fee. Any funds that are not used at the completion of the study are refunded back to the depositor.
Okay, and who actually does the study?
My staff does a study. I review the study, make some adjustments. We give the draft study back to the developer for their review as well. If they concur with it, we final it. If they have comments, we discuss and incorporate comments there before finalizing.
Thank you.
So the original sewer collection system study had already been done, and you're doing an update.
Correct. So December 1st of 2017, I believe, we completed the initial sewer study for the project here when the Waring Family Trust and the Tellier Family Trust still owned the property. We took about a $3,000 deposit for that, completed the study. And as I mentioned here, the study did identify a lot of undersized pipe, but following that we did have some negotiations with them to discuss conditions for sewer improvements.
And now we've just had these changes with the master plan, and et cetera, that requires us to look into it again.
Correct. So now that we have an updated master plan here, we have a brand new sewer model. We do have higher future sewer projections. We've requested with the new owners that they authorize us to perform a study so that we can determine if there's any changes in those conditions or not, because when we run it through the new model and come up with a new study, we just want to see if there's anything different there.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Director Hernandez.
Has the project changed from before and now, or is it sa-
Not to this point, no. The project itself is still being advertised as a 15-lot subdivision.
And because it is an update, so you have some information, you're just going to update it to the model?
That's correct,
in the
sir.
New master plan?
Correct.
All
Yes,
right.
yes. And I should point out at this time here, the new owners have given us a $3,000 deposit there. They have specifically told us so not to use that for a study. They wanted us to, first of all, resolve the water situation, which we did, and then to bring this before the board here for discussion.
Director Sanella.
So last week, when they were here, they said that the terms that you guys were proposing would make the project not viable economically. We're talking $3,000 right now, so what am I missing?
Director Sanella, so that's a very good point. At this point, we don't have the information to be able to set conditions. We're trying to acquire that information, thus the need for the updated sewer study. So I understand here that, yeah, they've given us a $3,000 deposit. Now, what I'd like to do is get their authorization to just let us complete or update the sewer study so that we can start to work on those conditions.
Okay. One more
Yes,
follow-up to that. And I know this is a guessing game for you, Rob, but, based off your just experience, do you think like there's going to be significant changes to that study?
We've seen some areas of the district actually have increased demand, future demand projections here. Not huge increases, but slight increases. What my concern is that some of these areas that we're already finding a little over design capacity, I just want to make sure that some of these areas don't go a lot over design capacity. And we have a bigger problem than we originally thought we did under the previous model.
So the study is so they will know and we will know what they need to do to upgrade the sewer system, correct?
That's correct. It's the
All right.
first step in determining
First
that.
step. But you've also said that VID is now going to serve them water. So in the original information that the Waring and Tellier Family Trust had, did that include a separate annexation for water and pipes and stuff for that in their expectations of funding needed?
So after my meeting with the Vista Irrigation District on Friday here, with the resolution that we have, it's basically the conditions unchanged from what we were talking about with the Warings and the Telliers.
Okay.
VID would serve water for the project there, and so we wouldn't need to do any water study at all.
Okay. Any more questions? All right, I'll call our speakers. The first one is Lee Whittington.
Start with Sahara.
Oh.
Reza, sorry.
Reza Samandari.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Reza Samandari. We are the developer for this property, and prior to our purchase, we came 3 times to here, to Vallecitos, and specifically we asked him, this is what the owner telling us, previous owner, but we want to make sure, what we get into it. And we came 3 times, and we have 3-4 emails. It shows, no further study needed, and they're gonna honor the same repairs there. They were 137 feet of sewer line updated from 12 inch to 15, and we already got the contractor, and we got the prices, and we set our budget for this, and we move forward. Even the few days before closing escrow, I asked Lee, he's been working with this for 3-4 years now, 3 years, and I asked him, Lee, please contact Vallecitos, make sure everything is the same as before. And he called me back and he said, I'll talk to Aileen, and they say, yes, we don't need to do anything and we are good. and we close escrow. And our concern is, with the shortages, all these houses, and this land is really, the profit margin is very low. And we cannot afford to do another study and come up with a significant couple $100,000 of sewer update or other stuff. And if is this going to be the case, we cannot even move forward, we might have to just try to divide this for 4 lots and put the septic on it, because this is really so much expense is going to be finding out, and we cannot move forward with this. And that's why we're asking board, please consider, this is, what they promised us, and we have many emails from Vallecitos. They showed you don't need to do anything. This is how it's going to be like a previous owner. And they put us in a really bad spot with all this investment, and we're paying a mortgage, and we're not doing anything. We had already want to sign a contract with him to move forward with all this. We put him on hold, and we are on hold to see what's going to happen with this.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Yes, Director Martin?
Question of the staff. The gentleman claims that he has emails from VWD stating no further study needed.
So what I think Mr. Samandari is referring to is an email here that came from, you talked about, Eileen, from my staff. That didn't say that no further studies required. That was what he was probably referring to, is an email
You
here
have it?
where I'm sorry?
He's got a copy, so
He's got a
we'll just
copy
read
of it.
Yeah, now is that the email that's talking about the 137-foot sewer?
I
Yeah,
think it does say no further studies needed, doesn't it?
Yes.
so if an email, so if you have an email like that, first of all, when I became aware of that email here, that's when I contacted them directly and say, wait a second, we don't have a project with you. We have a new master plan, we have a new sewer model that we need to make sure that that condition is still valid.
Yeah, Director Sinell had one too.
Yeah, I had the same question that Director Martin had. And if I would, maybe if you could pass it to him.
Yeah, could you see that? May I read it on the way over?
Yeah, please.
And it keeps.
And then I'll wait to comment
Actually,
until I read it.
above the highlighted area, it says that the study will not be changed. I highlighted the 137.
And you only have one copy?
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
But my question is, we did all this, we never heard, if I would be really happy if when we came here 3 times, they tell us, okay, this is a new master plan and you have to do the new study, then we will not buy this property. We were in the impression, and we got 3 emails, 3 times we came, they said, no, this is what we're gonna do. And after closing escrow, we got this email, we were just puzzled by it, how that can be changed. So just 3-4 days after the escrow closed.
I'm curious, and maybe I don't know which one of you I would ask this. Do you have a signed agreement from us regarding the prior study or the prior situation? I mean, we said, if I understood staff right, they did say that they needed a subdivision improvement plan check was opened, and they sent return plan comments, but they never got the corrected version. So even, did you still have something that was signed?
I don't know if there was ever anything signed. My name's Lee Whittington. I'm with Sweetwater Engineering, the engineer for the project. So throughout the project, what really happened was the project was moving through the tentative map process, and the county took almost 4 years to get this approved through tentative map. But during that time, we had started the annexation agreement with you guys, and did the sewer study and got all of the conditions. and the conditions say you have to have it finished in 180 days. Well, we were probably a year away from where the the tentative map was even approved. So we ended up filing another extension, or filed an extension, we got an extension, and when that one came up, we were still 6 months out from, really, I think it was 8 months out before the tentative map finally got approved after the first extension. So during that time, the extension had already expired. I think the tentative map was finally accepted in September of 2018, when your last study was almost exactly 6 months before that. So we had 180 days. Well, the 180, who's going to pay $150,000 for the annexation fees plus or $50,000 for the annexation fees plus the $150,000 for the capacity fees? Plus, everything else that's involved with repairing 137 feet of sewer when they don't even have a tentative map. So they finally get the tentative map approved right as it's expiring again, and the owner was trying to sell the project as an approved tentative map. So, but the purchasers they were looking into it, and they were basically saying there's really no money in this project. So he couldn't find anybody to buy the project originally. And really the issues were the offsite improvements and the water fees were just, really huge on this project. So it took him a year plus to try and sell it. Finally, Reza has bought it and thinks that he can make some money off of this project. And wanted to make sure all the agreements were still in place. He even asked me to call. I called Eileen, and she assured me everything is the same. I even have letters let me step back. When we were deciding whether to file another extension, a second extension, or just let it sit, the owner was saying, well, hey, I can't even find anybody to buy this. I might have to look at redesigning this project because nobody wants to buy it. So he was like, why should I keep filing extensions if this is going nowhere? And we have numerous emails throughout the process where we were actually told that it's in our best interest to let it expire and, quote, reopen the project, not start a new project. So the owner decided to reopen the project, or to let it expire and reopen it once, somebody really wants to go on with it. So now he's found an owner to purchase it, and they want to reopen it, but it sounds like we have to start totally new sewer study. And what we're afraid of is the new sewer study is going to be a drastic increase in the amount of sewer that's required to repair. Right now it's 137 feet. He talked to him. We were willing to do that 137 feet. But if a new sewer study, one, we have to pay $3,000 for it, and two, it's probably going to be a bunch more that's just going to kill the project. So.
And I have other directors who want to ask a question, but
Sure.
Did you work with the prior owner?
Yes, I
So
did.
you understand the history of it?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Director Martin?
My question is, I passed it to Mr. Gumpel, if he could weigh in on what that email says in his mind.
Well, without understanding the context of the conversation, it's hard to know, because if it was, hey, what was the existing conditions of the existing to the previous developer, then they'd be, this is what it is, this is what we anticipate. But at the end of the day, the district doesn't have an agreement with a development or a project that's active. However, that being said, the district needs basically a nexus to condition a developer. We can't just make up conditions without a nexus, and the study provides that nexus. The old study is really no longer valid, and the amount of difference in there, I know there's a fear of it, and actually I had staff reach out to the developer to hopefully meet with either myself or the general manager to kind of explain this, is we look at projects holistically. We have a better understanding of what's going on in the region and also regionally. For example, what the developer may not realize is LAFCO, VID, and Vallecitos all have in their long-term planning that this Bennett area will all annex into Vallecitos over time. And any development coming in will do that on a case-by-case basis in a kind of a logical way of doing it. So we don't look at it and say, there's 7,000 feet of sewer that this 15-lot subdivision will need to upgrade, because it's unrealistic. We look at it, the study is black and white, and then from there, staff conditions projects appropriately. So as Engineer Scholl pointed out, we can't say whether there will be more or less, but the significance of it, it's going to be scaled appropriately.
Well,
Okay.
can I continue?
To continue, how long does this study take?
We could probably update the study in 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
And-
You'd had a
and
question.
I didn't actually see the words that said no other study needed in that email. Did I just miss it? Because I was trying to speed read it and listen.
It said
and-
the study will not change in the
Yeah,
paragraph
take another look at
above
it.
the highlighting. It says the study will not change.
It says it will not be changed to remove the other pipe segments.
Yeah, let me read that again, too.
Yeah.
Just a minute.
You can read something else in
Can I go forward with the agreement, the annexation agreement, with the conditions? The conditions we get never said that it was 137 feet. The conditions we get say that we have to repair 7,000 feet. And that's all that's ever said. It's through the course of, it took months to actually negotiate back and forth with the engineering department to finally come, they went from there to 600 to 137 in it. They had to send out field crews to go review pipes and all sorts of stuff. It took months to review that, to reduce that down to the 137 feet. And there was the conditions never got revised. The conditions still say 7,000 feet, which is astronomical for a 15-lot subdivision. And actually, can I go on? I kind of want to question how you guys do a sewer study. It seems to me that the master plan is the God of all plans. It's the Bible, right? And that studies what, 25, 50 years into the future, right? And this property was included in that study. And this property is 3.8 acres, and it's 7.3, the density is 7.3 units per acre. That's for a maximum build-out of 27, almost 28 units. So the sewer study included this property for a 30-year build-out or whatever at 28 units.
Mr.
And yet we're
Whittington?
only building 15. So the 2008 sewer study did not identify any of these pieces that we were being asked to repair. It identified half of
Mr.
it.
Whittington, I'd like to just say one thing.
Yeah.
The master plan is really important, but it is a speculation, and it changes. And unfortunately, from the time you got involved in this project until Mr. Ariza has gotten in the project, that master plan changed. And we would be a mistake
I understand that.
as a community if we simply said it never changed. So it changed. Maybe what changed is what Mr. Scholl is explaining to you. What changed is also the growth around that piece of property.
Exactly.
So that growth affects your development, just as your development will affect the property down the road. 1 second. I think this is an unfortunate situation, but it sounds to me, and I'm certainly, the other directors will have some opinions, but you need to go and talk with not just staff, but with the GM and the supervisor and go through it. And I think you need to understand a little bit more about what's happened in that time period. And
I'm not questioning that a new one's been done. What I'm questioning is why a sewer study was required in the first place. And here's my understanding is.
because you're
I
on
understand-
septic.
Well, here's the reason, is you guys do a master plan, and it identifies the problem areas, and that's what the capital improvement fees are based on, right? And it is sized upon the unit, or the lots that have a density and all that, and it's to 30-year build-out at the maximum possible build-out of each of these properties, right? Well, I understand if somebody comes in with a new PUD and they're doing something bigger than what was previously studied by the master plan, then you're like, hey, what's going on? We have to see how this bigger development affects our master plan. But when somebody comes in at half the size of what was previously studied, it seems like that's a decrease in flow and a decrease in water. Why is a sewer study needed after the master plan sewer study already looked at this?
Thank you. Mr. Campbell had a response, and I'll come back to you.
It's a
Risa.
much longer conversation, but the very simplistic version is first off, the master plan looks at the Sandai projections for 30 years. The maximum development of a project, so the maximum density, happens in the ultimate. So that's not time definitive. The second thing is each project, we want to make sure is holistically encompassed. So in other words, we are not affecting our existing ratepayers by this new project. It's a neutral project. The project pays for itself as far as from an infrastructure standpoint without actually affecting our existing ratepayers and their pocketbooks and the existing infrastructure. The master plan also does not look at a single replacement project. Every single project in the master plan is growth related. There's replacement components, and that just happens to be a coincidence. So it doesn't identify, while the water and sewer study will identify projects that are pure replacement projects based on the existing flow rates and the flow rates of your project needs. So the master plan itself doesn't identify what your project may be affecting on existing sewer lines that don't need upsizing, because it never studied. It is a pure growth-related document, and it does not account for the growth-related projects in that 30 years time span. It's, you got to go up 100, 200 years to get that maximum flow. So what we do is we have a study that looks at the worst-case scenario, and as staff, we back down to something that's realistic for your condition to assure that we have a nexus of conditioning you, and we can prove not just to you as a developer, but to any citizen that comes in that we're appropriately conditioning a project without hurting the community at large.
Yes, no, Mr. Risa, Mr. Samandori.
Yes. Your Honor, I totally understand all this, but, my just question was, we came here, 3 times prior. If they told us this, this is what you're going to be involved with, really we would think twice to get involved with this, because, you go to county, you go to city, and you tell them, okay, I'm the buyer, this is the parcel number, I want to buy this property. What is involved? If they would tell us, this is what you're going to go through, then I would make up my mind, if I want to do it or not. But they put us this really awkward position now. We don't have any choice, and I'm afraid of, start a new study and, just start a, whole new can of worm, and we have to spend so much money, and we cannot even afford that, with this project. So,
Thank you. I believe we understand that. I'd like to make a comment, but first I'm going to have Director Hernandez.
Presently, you understand that you have to increase 137 feet of 8-inch pipe to 15-inch pipe.
yes.
You understand that?
Yes.
It's my opinion, and I used to be a developer, still an architect, but it's my opinion that the $3,000 study is not going to make or break this project. The fear that you have is opening this can of worms, as you say. Well, I think you should pay to open the can of worms, and in my opinion, if that turns into a basket of snakes, then I would be back here going, wait a minute, we did this and we were at 137, now you got me at 7,000 feet. Then perhaps coming back for a discussion or having a negotiation with staff would be fruitful. But until we know if there is any differential and what the differential is, I'm of the mind to agree that you need to do the study, find out what it is, and then discuss with staff or come back.
I think that he's absolutely right. We can discuss this all night, but we really don't know what we're talking about until the until the study is done. And when you know what the results are, I hope that you will come back, not just to staff, but make a point that you are with the supervisor and the GM, and you understand what That's, and as Mr. Director Hernandez says, the fear alone isn't, our job is to make policies, and the policy is you follow the procedure. So please, do the study.
I guess my only question is the new master plan identified new areas, and it identified these new areas with this density in place, which we're coming in at half of. So a separate sewer study, how is a separate sewer study, what does it really look for different than the master plan?
Those are the, I think the first thing, you need to sit down with the GM and our director, our supervisor, and understand, because the truth is, we are operating under a new master plan.
Which is fine.
So
And
the
we-
questions you're asking, I appreciate you asking them, but we don't have the answers. The answers lie with staff. So I would recommend, one, that you plan on doing the studies so we know what exactly the challenge will be, and two, that you talk to staff about all those questions, and obviously you need to talk with the GM or the supervisor and not someone you've already spoken with,
Okay.
and bring in those questions.
I think that's very fair to doing it. I'm just, just the risk we're taking, if they have a study and come up with a whole lot of new pipes or repairs and things, and we're gonna be just really lose our ship because there is nothing in this project, and we cannot even then go back to sell to somebody else. We just stuck with this. I hope, the board understand that and help us, we don't mind. I think, you're making a great point, and that's fair, but, if it's something come down the road, please help us
Let's
to
see.
resolve this.
Let's see what comes forward after the study. We don't know what we're talking about now, and I believe what staff is saying is legally you don't have a written agreement. So let's do the study and see what we can do moving forward. Thank you.
We have a little more. One, on the water, I know that the districts.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
What's that?
You've had a lot of time. Is this a new point?
No, this is just that we've discussed sewer. I'd like to move on to water for just a short second.
We're not actually responsible for the water at this
Well,
point?
we
It
are
will-
being required to annex into your water district. And your district, we've been required to, since I think your codes requires, if we annex into sewer, we also have to annex into water.
Mr. Whittington, those are questions the board members don't have the answers for. If you will spend the time with staff, you can answer them there.
I'd like to hear him out.
Okay.
But I thought we already addressed that.
I thought it was too, and I thought that was a good
No,
faith.
We don't
showing
have
from
to
staff.
extend the water. We don't have to extend the water. We can annex into we can utilize VID's water, but we're being required to still annex into our Vallecitos Water District's water district. So we have to pay the annexation fees.
Would you like to answer?
My question is, in a project just recently, the Lupa project, you guys waived the water annexation and only made them apply to the sewer. We were wondering, since we're not going to utilize your water, if we could do the same.
All right, Mr. Gumpel.
And then Mr. Scholl will back me up because he knows a little bit more, but the essence is VID's own planning document has that whole area to annex into Vallecitos. LAFCO's edict was for that whole area to, since it's in Vallecitos sphere, to annex into Vallecitos, and our ordinances are written to support that. Mr. Lupa's property was unique because it was a single legal lot that had 2 APNs that was grandfathered in prior to those actions, which was already served. So it ended up being in 2 different tax bases and basically ended up becoming a State Board of Equalization issue because you cannot have 2 properties in 2 different tax revenues, and it's a single legal lot. Your property that you're developing fits the statutes of the intent of LAFCO, the long-range planning documents of VID, and Vallecitos ordinance, which all are in alignment.
Does it help?
I talked to LAFCO. We're actually finished with the LAFCO process, and it was my understanding that through LAFCO, yes, we've changed the boundaries so that the LAFCO boundary is now, we're in an overlap boundary now of Vista Irrigation and Vallecitos Water, but according to LAFCO, I think that we've only annexed into the sewer, even though there's the boundary that.
Yeah,
Mr.
at this
Schwab.
point, the board's conditions for annexation have not been met for water or sewer for this project, for this property.
They have not been.
No, they have not. And that was, those conditions were approved by the board, like I said at the beginning of my presentation, back in 2017.
Okay.
So that includes, you know, giving various paperwork, but also includes our annexation fees. And none of that has been performed to this date.
Well, this is indeed a very challenging and unfortunate situation, but I still think that if you'll get the study and come forward to the board after you've spoken very detailed with all your questions, you have a lot of questions you need to get the answers to, and then come forward if we're not able to work it out. That work?
And I would just concur with, I think, what the majority of us are saying. I definitely, unlike Director Hernandez, I never have been or probably never will be a developer, but I definitely can understand from a business perspective the challenges that you guys are facing. But we also have to be mindful that whatever impact you guys bring new into our district, that you burden some of the costs that our current residents and customers that live here have already paid. So I think believe it or not, we actually get accused, and you guys kind of outlined all the different challenges and all the different costs and fees and annexation and everything else. And I know it's expensive. Believe it or not, we actually get accused regularly of not being hard enough on developers. So, and it's terribly hard, and I get it. So I would recommend just go through the process, go through the study, and then let's just cross that bridge when we get to it, and let's have a conversation then.
Did you want Director Martin?
Yeah, I appreciate the situation you're in, I understand it. And I think more than that, I understand that you don't like some of the answers you've heard tonight, but they're the answers. I mean, some of the answers staff has given you, we have ordinance, we have things in place. You may not like that we have it, but we do. And doing the study is something that has to happen. Let me trust you, our staff is not going to go out of its way to try to get you to do something you don't have to do. They're not going to add 2 inches to a pipe, you know, I mean, it's not going to happen. So everything I've found is they work very diligently at getting the exact numbers they need. And there again, there's a threshold of what they need. You already brought up the fact that the sewer is a little over 50% of the pipes, and we mandate that 50% is where you need to be. Because what happens at halftime at the Super Bowl, everyone uses the sewer at the same time. So you have to have added capacity. But those are things that the master plan is going to show, and we have to follow those rules. Like I said, you may not like the answers they're giving you, but they're being very honest. But after the study's done, you know, then you always come back and say, I don't think the study's right. I mean, that's a different story, but the study has to happen.
All right. Thank you.
I guess, you know, this put us in a really bad business-wise situation. I wish, you know, the Robert or somebody in there, they tell us before we close an escrow, you come in there and say, okay, this is what you're gonna go through it. Then we would make a decision. We just like throwing us under the bus now, you know, with all this. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Whew. Moving on.
Yeah.
I need to talk to my partner in a few minutes, then I'll let
We'll release that in an email or something.
Are they waiting?
What's that? What was the question? I didn't.
Did you ask us another question?
No, this is, you know, do we need to tell them right now, we need to do the study?
Yeah, Robert, do you need an answer right now if we're gonna?
Or can I need to talk to my partner?
Oh, no, I don't.
No, I don't need an answer at this moment here. I just need to have some type of written authorization that we're authorized to move forward with the sewer study. and then we can proceed from there.
Thank you. Do you want your email back?
Okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Okay, next item is item 2.2, adjustment to general manager's compensation. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Gumpel.
Thank you, Madam President. So this is for the annual review for General Manager Prum, who could not be here today. So with that, I'm going to turn that back over to the board for discussion.
Actually, I need to
sorry.
just make a statement. So the Brown Act requires specific notice, an oral summary of a recommendation when something concerns the compensation or benefits of an executive level individual at the district. So I'm just going to read a statement that can be included in the minutes. So recently, the board conducted the annual performance review for General Manager Pruitt. The item before the board is a proposed one-time bonus based on his performance evaluation. Under the Brown Act, the board is required to provide an oral summary of the recommended salary or compensation change of a district executive. The proposed action is a one-time lump sum bonus in the amount of $10,000 and will not be included in the calculation of his CalPERS retirement benefit. No other changes to the general manager's compensation or benefits are proposed.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the one-time lump sum bonus for General Manager Pruitt. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, and passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we will go to the General Manager's report.
So the only quick report I have is the district may recall from the district legal counsel report, there was a litigation filed with the district name on it in Santa Clara County for cost of service based on water use for fire protection and the proper allocation of it. But yet at the time, there was no summons received. We received a summons today. The other report items I have is we're working on rescheduling the goal-setting workshop. I believe Diane will be contacting, if hasn't already contacted the board, about getting some dates on that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Oh, you were good. You're good.
There, you're good now.
Sorry. This is the same frivolous lawsuit that's being applied all around the state now by the same attorney's firm, correct?
That's correct. I can't count them, but there are at least 3 or 4 dozen agencies that are
3 or
named
4
in this
dozen?
litigation. Yeah.
So we understand that no probability that's going to be thrown out by a court because of what it is.
I'm not sure yet, and I wouldn't speculate quite yet.
I was recently at a conference, and there's a name for what that is when an attorney goes and does that. And you must know the name of it.
I know that this attorney had set up a website to try and collect disgruntled water customers that were upset about high water bills, and then chose to focus on this aspect.
Right.
That's my understanding.
But there's a name for lawsuits that are brought about frivolously by one attorney to multitudes, whoever. Do you know the name, what that name is?
It's not coming to mind.
Okay, I heard it at
at
a
the moment.
conference.
Vexatious? Vexatious?
Vexatious? Have you heard that?
Usually that's if you bring a suit over and over and over and over again, it's sort of in a harassing way, with the same parties.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and that your only, it's now legal counsel's report time.
I have no report.
All right, thank you. On the San Diego County Water Authority, there was a meeting last week, and I did have a couple things report. One of them is actually under the legislative committee, and they talked about, and I'm just going to kind of read it. There is 2 bills being sponsored by the Water Authority. One is introducing a placeholder legislation to ensure there's an opportunity during 2020 to determine whether there's a statutory path available so we can actually use Lake Vincent, the dam, San Vincent for energy storage. And that's still, we thought we might get through it last year, but we didn't. And secondly, there's a bill, and this is on the subject you just spoke of. Senator John Morlack has introduced SB 11386. That's being co-sponsored by the Water Authority and the Irvine Ranch Water District, and its purpose is intended to clarify existing law regarding the imposition of fire-related water service charges being implemented across the customer base in compliance with Proposition 218. The legal action that this attorney and in this class action suit is they are saying that the cost of the water should be paid for by the fire departments and not the citizens. That's what they're going for. So we're trying to reaffirm that water agencies' existing water service charge practices are relative to the situation. I just don't know who we think pays the fire station's bill.
Yeah, so
So
then you're going to bill at your house.
It's very, 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 very
The city's
interesting.
going to have to implement a fire tax. One or the other, either you get billed directly or the city taxes the
Right.
people.
And your house is down and you get a bill. Sorry.
Well, I'm thinking the foolishness is when the fire department gets to your house, they've got to take out a water meter from their truck and install it on the hydrant before they can turn the water on.
Well, I'm worried about they come and then the water shuts off because they haven't paid their bill. Oh, we have that rule about
Strange.
shutting people off too. But, yeah, it's interesting. Also, there's, maybe I'll leave that. There was another one I wanted to tell you about. There's actually several. One was on Prowse, and it has to do with public safety. Everybody's got everything in for the public safety right now. So there's one for price gouging prohibition related to purchases of generators in emergency situation. There's a bill coming forward for including de-energization events as a condition constituting a state emergency, and I'm assuming they're talking about when the power is turned off, but it becomes a local emergency. They would like to exempt the operation of emergency backup generators from local, regional, and state regulations regarding operation. They would like sales tax exemptions for local government entities purchasing backup generators, and they would like to provide flexibility for use of emergency backup generators during a PSPS event. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 6 of them right there. And just when you think we have rules covering everything, it doesn't occur that you're going to have to make an actual separate bill that in an emergency you wouldn't charge extra for generators, or you would allow flexibility in emergency. But there were 2,200 new bills introduced on February 21st. So those are some of them. Very, very interesting. Otherwise, that's, I think that we did discuss MWD, and you've probably seen in the papers or gotten emails about the offer that the Water Authority gave to MWD. I'm hoping we'll reach some sort of conciliation and move forward on at least part of that litigation. And that's it. So now we go to, meetings and conferences? Or did I miss somebody? Oh, I'm sorry.
Encina.
We haven't done anything.
I'm sorry,
No
I
meetings
missed you. Nothing yet?
Nothing yet.
Okay, sorry about that. Now the standing committees.
Standing Finance Committee, we started off Monday with looking at the budget for next year already. And I have to say, the Finance Committee gave an excellent report to us going back 6 years and looking at the budget versus the actuals, which we'll be bringing forward, obviously. But there's some kudos meant to be brought out here. Budget to actual sewer keeps doing a fantastic job of coming in under budget. And our new IT gentleman has saved us $100,000 last year. He's doing a yeoman's job. So there's some really good news in there. There's good news about our purple pipe water. We're receiving more money for that now than we used to, thanks to Wes and his group, and the GM, of course. So it all looks very good, and looks like we're right on schedule to continue paying down our PERS. Looks like we're on schedule, but Wes doesn't want to commit to that yet, but
Excellent.
Mike and I do.
Nice to hear. Thank
So it was
you.
all good news.
Thank you, that's great. Any other standing committees?
We're going to have an engineering committee on the 9th, I believe.
On the 9th?
Yes.
All right. And directors' reports on meetings, conference, and seminars attended, anyone?
No,
I didn't think
last
so. Okay, that's the end of our reports. We have a meeting, you haven't scheduled the workshop, Diane, is that correct?
Not yet.
Not yet, we're working on it still. All right,
Just based on Glenn's
all right,
right now.
okay, thank you.
Maybe I can have some info.
Okay, and are there any comments or items for future agendas?
Not me.
Adjourned.
Thank you.
Look at that.